Hey there, Slashaholics. If you haven't done so already, be sure to listen to the prologue of my original story before listening to tonight's upload of chapters 1 and 2. And like I said before, this is sort of an Elseworlds type tale. It doesn't follow canon directly with the films and everything. And also, like the dates and stuff in it might not line up if you go back and look at the calendar for the years mentioned. But like I said, it's an Elseworlds thing, and let's just have fun with it. Here we go. Friday the 13th Quarantine by Joshua LaRue. Chapter 1. Friday, January 13th, 2008. Ah! No! No! Rex yelled as a hand burst through the snow, grabbing his ankle and tripping him to the ground. Wait! Don't leave me! He yelled to the group that he had been traveling with since the refugee center that was set up at Fort Dix Army Base in Burlington, New Jersey, had been overrun with trioxites. They had done so well there as well. Over a year they lived in safety and security, with military protection. But now that was all over. Rex was 25. He was a handsome guy. He had been an insurance agent and made very good money. He was Latino, 6'1", average build, very short brown hair, and a neat goatee. Rex didn't even know these people. He was there with his fiancée Betsy, or Bet for short. Shortly before the gunfire and the chaos, she had went to the latrines, and when all hell broke loose, he had no choice but to run. It happened fast. Hundreds died and then came back to join the army of the trioxites. He tried to go back for Bet, but then he saw her within the horde. Some trioxites are able to communicate, but too many times he saw them manipulate the living only to kill them and devour them. He loved Betsy, but knew he would never be able to hurt her if he had to defend himself against her. He got in one of the buses that were leaving the base, and it wasn't all bad luck that day. The bus he got on held 22 others. They could have fit more, but the trioxites had gotten too close and they had to leave dozens of people behind to feed or join the army of the undead. But being one of the 22 to get away on that particular bus wasn't the only lucky part. The luckiest part was that one of the 22 on that bus was a United States Senator from New Jersey, Thomas Wilcox, aka Tom, as he liked to be called. Tom knew where another safe zone was. All communications and radio signals were dead, but he knew of a base in Illinois that he said was impenetrable, and since he was the only one with a plan, everyone agreed and they began their trip to Sanctuary in safety. Their trip had been stalled several times as the trioxites outnumbered the living. Bigger cities fell so fast and spawned so many new undead, and they traveled together in giant hordes, hunting and tracking survivors until they had them. Sometimes they'd devour them all, and sometimes they'd add numbers to their ranks. They had been quite lucky for the first few weeks, even though they had had to change trajectory several times, causing major setbacks. And now a particular Triox horde had been tailing the 22 refugees for over 2 weeks. In the process, the number in the group had been dwindled down to 10. There was the dad and his 2 teens, that was Harry Miller, the father and his 19-year-old son Mark and 17-year-old daughter Janine. Harry was a retired firefighter. He had been there on 9/11 and lost many brothers and sisters that day. He carried that pain and regret in the crow's feet and wrinkles on his suntanned face. He wasn't especially tall or muscular. He was an average 5'10", weighed around 220 pounds, and looked much older than he was. At only 47, you'd think he was pushing 60. His dark hair speckled with bright white. He was the definition of salt and pepper hair. His 2 teens couldn't be any more different than their dad. Mark stood at 6'3", was lanky, weighing around 160, had short dark hair, but he was fit and was a fast runner. He had volunteered several times to get in and out of places when the group needed supplies. His sister Janine was gorgeous. She was 5'3", 115 pounds, soaking wet. She had an hourglass figure, wasn't skinny, wasn't big. She was curvy in all the right ways, and the most beautiful crystal blue eyes. Rex had caught himself staring at her large seed cups many times, only to turn red-faced when she'd catch him looking and smile, and push her hair behind her ears. But Rex knew she was only 17, and he was still missing Betsy. Though it was a cold, lonely world out there, and facing it alone wasn't an option anymore. Rex wasn't sure if he'd ever act on his infatuation with Janine or her infatuation with him. but for now he was enjoying the view. Then there was Tom Wilcox, the senator. He was kept safe at all costs, as the group would need him to be admitted to this secret base he spoke of. Tom was exactly what you would expect out of a senator. He was 5'9", stocky, out of shape, neat gray hair, blue eyes, clean-shaven, and somehow always seemed clean, no matter how long they went without a means to wash. There was a 21-year-old college football star, Kevin Cunningham. He was cocky and arrogant and kept a running tally of how many trioxites he had killed. His current number was 299, and he was dying to hit that big 300. He wouldn't shut up about it. He was a muscular black man. He had short curly hair, brown eyes, and was lean. He had been on a full scholarship and was set to be a shoo-in for the NFL. And then, just like everyone else's dreams and aspirations, it was snatched away from him when the Trioxin fell. Rounding out their motley crew of end-of-the-world survivors was Ron and Dorothy, the older stuck-up couple. They were obviously very wealthy back when money still meant something. They had even somehow gotten special treatment at the refugee camp and constantly reminded Tom Wilcox that they had donated to his campaign several times, already trying to get in good with the senator to keep their upper-class identity for when the group made it to the base in Illinois. Ron Savinsky was 65 years old, short and plump at 5'6", horseshoe baldness with dyed black hair, and a dyed black mustache and thick glasses. And his wife Dorothy was only 54. She was 5'8" and very attractive for her age. She had definitely had work done on her face and breasts, as her double Ds didn't quite move like Mother Nature intended. She had long, elegant blonde hair and bright green eyes, and looked not a day over 45. And finally that left the mystery twins, Adrian and Sally Ann. These girls were very quiet and secretive. They kept to themselves and didn't really talk much with the rest of the group. But when things got tough, they would do their part. They were identical in every way. 5'4", long red hair, fair-skinned, hazel eyes, and a modest B-cup. The only difference between the two was a scar on Sally Ann's neck from a car accident when they were children. Out of the 12 that had been lost so far since fleeing the base, 2 of them were their parents. In fact, if not for their parents being taken by the trioxites when the horde surrounded the bus not 15 minutes earlier, then the 10 of them that remained wouldn't have gotten the small head start that they were now taking full advantage of, running for their lives and hopefully finding transportation or shelter through the New Jersey wilderness. For the most part, Rex felt the most inadequate of the group. It seemed like when the shit hit the fan, everyone left out of the tent except for him knew what to do and stepped into go mode. Rex seemed to always fuck up something. And now, after the horde had overtaken their bus, the group was on foot fleeing from the damn Triox horde that had been stalking them for the past 14 or so days, and of course, it was Rex that fucked up yet again. "Guys, it's got me! Help!" Rex yelled again. Harry turned around to run back and help Rex, but as he did, the trioxite that had been under the snow and grabbed Rex's ankle was now unsubmerged, and before Rex could pull away, it had bitten into his throat as his screams for help turned into gurgles, and more trioxites from the horde caught up and fell upon Rex as well. The group had dwindled again down to 9. The only silver lining at that moment was Rex would buy them some time. "Dad, it's too late, come on!" Mark yelled to his father as he grabbed his arm and pulled him back in the other direction. The group ran in silence, putting more distance between themselves and the horde that was surely gaining ground somewhere behind them. They had ran into a dense wooded area, and they were beginning to lose any semblance of direction, when out of nowhere, the group of 9 came out into a huge clearing of snow-covered ground leading up to a giant wall and huge fencing. It went off to the left and right as far as the eye could see, with a slight curvature, and scattered along the big wall were what seemed to be watchtowers tagged with the letters OP-CL-JV. Everyone in the group except Senator Tom Wilcox began to slow down and come to a stop, staring ahead and up at the huge structure before them in awe. "Whoa, welcome to Jurassic Park," said Kevin. Senator Tom was still running and had reached the wall and was frantically running his hand along the surface of it wiping snow away as if he was looking for something. As his hand knocked snow away, large graffiti could be seen on the wall reading Camp Blood, and another section that read Rotten Hell, Maggot Head, with the initials TJ under it. Everyone was looking at the structure and almost forgot what they were running from, until they could hear the ungodly groaning and moans of the undead coming from the thicket of trees somewhere behind them. They all ran up to the senator, who was still frantically running his hand along the wall. "What the hell are you doing, Tom?" Harry demanded. "It's gotta be here somewhere. Just shut up and let me look," Tom responded. "Just what are you talking about? What has to be here? Do you know where we are?" Ron prodded. The group began murmuring, asking all at once what Tom was looking for. "Shut up! I found it!" Tom yelled frantically, looking back at the tree line. The noise of the horde was getting closer, but the tree line was still uninhabited for now. Tom pushed on a small section of the wall, and a rectangular section no more than 1 foot by 1 foot opened up, and a handle was inside. Tom pulled the handle to the right, and the group heard a loud click, and directly to the left of that small opening, a section of the wall seemed to move in a couple inches, but no more. "Damn it! No power! God damn it! And the snow! It's so deep and no one has been maintaining it. We have to push," Tom ordered. "We aren't doing anything until we get some answers," Harry chided. "Yeah, dude, like, how did you know to open that wall and pull that handle?" Kevin asked. "Yes, Tom, as your friend, I demand to know why you've kept this from me," Ron asked in his annoyingly entitled tone. Everyone had their back to the tree line facing Tom, but Tom was facing them and could see the tree line as hundreds of trioxites began to appear along it. Tom pointed behind the group, then turned and started pushing on the section of wall that had moved. "God damn it, push! They're here!" Tom screamed. The group looked back and stopped their interrogation and began pushing with all of their might. The section began to move slowly. The wall was so thick and heavy, it seemed impossible they'd get it open enough to squeeze through in time. The horde was less than a football field's distance away, as the section began to move a little faster, and the group could see a heavily wooded area through the crack, and as it opened enough to make room for them, everyone began frantically squeezing through and lining up on the other side to push it back closed. The twins were the last ones through, and as Adrian was squeezing through and got clear, a decayed hand shot through. "Let us in! We'll eat you quick!" a trioxite said in a gravelly voice. More began taunting them as well as they pushed against the section, trying to get in with the group of survivors. Kevin, who was actually quite smart and quick-witted, used his football problem-solving and went into action. Everyone had grabbed what little supplies they could in the chaos of fleeing the bus when the horde had attacked, and Kevin had only had time to grab one thing, a large axe. As the group was pushing with all of their might to close the section off before trioxites could get through, Kevin began chopping a tree that was adjacent to that section of wall. He stopped and ran to the group and pushed with all of his might, and against all odds, they got the section closed off enough to stop any trioxites from getting through. But they couldn't hold it that way forever. They would tire. The undead would not. "When I say so, everybody move," Kevin ordered. They didn't need it explained. Everyone was on the same page and watched as Kevin ran back to the tree he'd been chopping. He swung the axe again and again and heard a loud crack. "Move!" he yelled, and the group listened. As soon as they let go and ran away from the falling tree, they saw the section of wall start to open again and light coming through. But it was short-lived, as the large tree landed against the wall at an angle, the bottom section of the tree hitting hard and digging into the ground, creating enough support to stop the large section of wall from opening. For now. Kevin went to another tree and repeated his work, and another tree fell against that section of wall right next to the first. They could hear the horde outside moaning, groaning, and taunting them. But for now, the group was safe and had found shelter and security. But the question on everyone's mind was, how? As the group collectively caught their breath, they all turned their attention towards Senator Tom, who was actively looking around at their new surroundings. "Okay, Senator. Time to start talking," Harry demanded. "Daddy, maybe we should just be happy we're safe," his daughter Janine said. "No, if he knows something that we don't, we need answers," her brother Mark replied. "Yeah, dude, like, I'm happy we're safe and not being digested by some asshole corpse with a big mouth, but I'd kind of like to know where we are and how you knew what to do," Kevin added. "Yes, I must say I am quite perturbed myself, Thomas, and I implore you to explain to me why I was left out of the loop," Ron demanded. "Honey, think of your blood pressure," his wife warned him. "Look, everyone is safe. Isn't that all that matters? Not sure if you people have noticed or not, but there is a bad snowstorm moving in off to the west. I can explain everything in good time, but for now, we need to find shelter and take inventory of what supplies we have and what supplies we need. There is a campground not far from here, cabins, multiple structures. Let's get there and I will answer any questions you have. Deal?" the silver-tongued politician remarked, hoping he had bought himself time by kicking the can down the road a bit. "If we keep heading in, we should come straight to the cabins. So do we have a deal?" The group looked at each other. Everyone took a breath and nodded. "Lead the way, Senator," Harry said. "But we will have answers soon." Tom smiled his best politician smile and said, "You betcha." The group began their trek to the cabins of Camp Crystal Lake. Jason had no idea that him and his mother had visitors. He had been hunting for and feeding Mother for over a year now. He didn't know that the world outside his home had ended, and that the dead were walking the earth and hunting the living. He had Mother, and Mother had her special boy. But Jason's world was about to end in a sense as well, very soon. But at this particular moment, only one thing was important. It was time to feed Mother. Jason took his machete off the wall, put it in his waistband, and left his shack, and walked into the snow-laden forest to check his traps and find food for Mother. As he walked, a thought crossed Jason's mind. Jason was feeling something he hadn't felt since a very young age. Something that now felt strange and alien. He had Mother. It was like before he drowned, before that nasty counselor took Mommy away. Jason no longer felt the rage and bloodthirst, no. It was true. There was no denying it. Jason felt content. Even happy? Chapter 2. A Cold Day in Hell. The senator was correct on two fronts. First, there indeed was a snowstorm on the way. The group could feel the temperature dropping by the minute, and the clouds were dark, low, and heavy above them. It was only late afternoon, but seemed like it was almost dark. Luckily, the other thing the senator was correct about was that they were indeed not far from cabins. Within 20 minutes of walking, the group came upon a grown-over trail in the dense woods. They followed it for another 10 minutes and came upon a set of cabins in a clearing. On the other side, the trail continued into another patch of woods with a sign that said Campsite C/Crystal Lake Dock. The group decided to investigate the current set of cabins before going any further into the Camp Crystal Lake grounds. Where they stood, they were surrounded by 3 cabins and a shed marked maintenance. One of the cabins was completely collapsed, as well as the shed. Another cabin's chimney was collapsed, which left the third cabin that seemed to be completely intact. Like I said before, I will tell you everything you want to know. But for now, let me assure you we are surrounded on all sides by that wall. We are completely safe. I know you want information, and I will give it, but that storm is coming soon. So shall we see how this cabin looks inside? Senator Tom said, while pulling out a flashlight from a backpack he had over one shoulder. He turned the knob of the cabin's front door, and it opened slowly. Mark and Sally Ann also had flashlights, and they stepped in with Tom. and the three shone their lights around the dark cabin. It was covered in dust and cobwebs, with old furniture strewn about, and to their left an old rotted table broken in the middle and laying in two pieces. The rest of the group stepped in behind the three flashlight bearers, and together they investigated what turned out to be the largest of the three cabins. They found a bathroom with a broken window, with snow covering the shower and the toilet. Tom let out a shriek as he startled himself when he shone his light on the mirror. They also found 3 bedrooms. All 3 rooms had old bunk beds and twin beds running along their walls. They guessed this cabin had been the counselor's quarters. There was 10 beds in all, including 3 bunk beds between the 3 rooms. There was even an old rotted hammock in the corner of one room. Once their tour was over, they all returned to the main room and stood around the empty stone fireplace. "Not too shabby. Will be a good place to wait out the storm," Senator Tom began. "We need to just clean the place up, make sure the chimney is clear, and we can start a fire and stay warm." "I'm not sure if you noticed, but we didn't exactly get off the bus with a lot of supplies, Senator. My kids and I will check out Campsite C and the docks and see if there's anything we can use, maybe some non-perishables or clothes," Harry volunteered. Yes, good. We will also need firewood and lots of it. And someone needs to dig a latrine pit unless we want to clear out a room full of snow and use a restroom with no running water," Tom added. "Well, don't look at me. I'm old and beat down and have high blood pressure," said Ron. "And I simply must be by his side in case he has an episode and needs my help," his wife chimed in. "I saw a shovel outside. I'll dig us a pit for now close to the cabin out the back door. Do I even need to ask, or is it already obvious who our volunteer lumberjack should be?" Tom said, with a smile, turning his light on Kevin. "What do you say, champ? Can you use that game-winning chop-action arm strength of yours to get us some firewood and keep us warm for the night?" "You should really put some chapstick on before you go kissing someone's ass that hard, Senator. All you had to do was ask. We all," Kevin turned to glare towards Ron and Dorothy, "need to do our part to make it, together." Kevin held the axe over his shoulder and walked towards the front door. "And don't think we've forgotten, Tom. You got some answers to give us when we're settled." With that, Kevin walked out of the cabin and onto a trail that went off into the woods on the right side of the cabins. Harry and his son and daughter walked towards the front door as well and turned towards Senator Tom. "He's right, Tom. When we get settled and get a fireplace going, we're going to have some questions. Questions about how you knew about this place, what this place is, and exactly how accidental us being here actually is," Harry said, calmly but with an intensity in his eyes. Then he added, "Here's your shovel for the shit pit. See you soon." Harry reached next to the front door and picked up a shovel that was leaning against the wall. He gently tossed it towards Tom, who dropped his flashlight and caught the shovel. Harry, Mark, and Janine walked out of the cabin and headed down the trail that led to Campsite C and the Crystal Lake dock. Ron and Dorothy had found 2 wooden chairs that were still sturdy sitting next to the broken table, and they offered their services of making sure the chairs didn't fly away by sitting their entitled asses down in them. "How about it, girls? Think you can spruce up the place a bit? Make it a little more livable for everyone? Be team players," Tom said, and then dropped his fake smile as he remembered something. "Oh, girls, I'm so sorry. In all the chaos, I just forget. It all happened so fast. I am so sorry for your loss. My thoughts and prayers are with you both, and I know this is a trying time, and I know it's hard losing your parents, but could you find the strength to help the group out and just knock down some of these cobwebs, pull out some beds in here, straighten up some?" Tom said, with obviously rehearsed inflection that he had used dozens of times as a politician. "You can stop the cell, Senator. Yeah, we will clean up, but we've been watching you. You wanted to come here. This was where you were leading us, not Illinois. We know you're up to something, and if you don't start giving the group some answers, we're going to tell them what we've seen you do when no one else was looking," Sally Ann said matter-of-factly. "We know about the folder in your pack, Tom. The one marked like the watchtowers, OP-CL-JV. When everyone gets back, you tell us everything, or we tell them," Adrian added. "All right, and who said you girls were so quiet? No need to threaten anyone. When we all get back and get a nice warm fire going and figure out our next move, I will tell the group everything, you have my word." He held up his fist with his thumb sticking up, like so many politicians have done while giving a speech throughout history. He smiled, gave them a wink, and walked out the back door and started digging. I love my little nasty girl, all my women from around the world. I love my little nasty girl. All the ladies, if you're with me, grab your titties for B.I.G. Kevin sang to himself as he walked the snow-covered trail through the woods of Crystal Lake. For the first time in a long time, Kevin felt a sense of peace. It was nice knowing that a wall the size of the one King Kong was kept behind surrounded this entire place. Not having to worry about a horde of trioxites attacking while you try to sleep was a nice feeling. Kevin couldn't believe that tonight would be the first night since the Trioxin fell that he would be able to sleep without one eye open. He caught himself missing normality. He then thought more about King Kong, then thought about Jack Black and how he had been surprised at just how good Jack Black had been in that King Kong remake. And then Kevin found himself getting angry that the fucking apocalypse had completely ruined him getting to see Tenacious D in the Pick of Destiny. That was a movie that was going to come out back in November 2006, 2 months after the Trioxin fell. If not for the apocalypse, he was sure that that movie would have gone on to be one of the biggest hits of the year, if not the decade. He went back to singing while he looked for the perfect tree to chop. You know I love my little nasty girls. I need you to dance, I need you to strip, I need you to shake your little ass and hips, I need you to grind like you're working for... Oh, shit! Kevin was distracted and didn't see the root that stuck out above the ground and barely shone above the snow, and his foot went right inside it and he tripped and started going down a very steep hill that ran along the trail that the snow had already made hard to follow. Kevin had the presence of mind to remember he had the axe strapped to his back. He hoped against hope he didn't end up getting his damn head cut off. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Kevin came to stop against a fallen tree at the bottom of the incline. As the world spun around him, Kevin stood, hands on his knees, bent over, trying to get his bearings. After a few moments, he shook his head and stood up to take inventory of his surroundings. Nothing but trees and snow as far as the eye could see. But wait, what was that? Off in the distance, Kevin saw something that didn't quite belong. He started walking towards it, and as he got closer, he could see what looked to be a shack that someone had built out of a mismatch of boards, siding, logs, and sheet metal. It had a crooked window on the side and an uneven doorway. Kevin didn't hear anybody nearby and assumed it was perhaps a clubhouse some kids at camp had built a long time ago. Just in case, though, he pulled the axe off his back and held it in his hand as he walked through the doorway. The smell almost knocked him off his feet. He held his hand to his nose as he looked around. There were animal hides everywhere. as well as animal skeletons and flies and maggots all over the animal corpses, strewn on the floor, shelves, and on a makeshift table. And then he saw to his left an old toilet that at one time had surely been white, but was now a faded yellow and covered in feces and urine. On the walls he saw bear traps, machetes, knives, and even a glove with a metal frame housing 4 rusted razor-sharp-looking blades. It was partially wrapped in green and red fabric. As he was looking around, he accidentally kicked an animal carcass and made a loud crack as a bone of the dead animal broke under his weight. Kevin stood frozen in place, and as he realized this couldn't be a clubhouse from years gone by, and someone was surely here recently, he heard a voice call from the small room in the back of the ramshackle structure.
"Jason, my special boy, is that you? Jason, Mommy's hungry, Jason. Feed Mother,"
the voice called out. Kevin took his axe in both hands and slowly walked towards the back room. He inched slowly towards the doorway. He noticed a small flickering candlelight coming from the room and an even stronger stench. As he drew closer, he saw a shadow on the wall of what appeared to be perhaps a basketball or something like it, sitting upon a table, but no shadow of a woman like the voice he heard. "Hello?" Kevin called.
"You're not my Jason. You shouldn't have come. My special boy will be home soon and I'm hungry. Perhaps you'll be dinner, you foolish boy,"
the voice replied. "I'm not going to be anybody's dinner, Kevin's voice trailed off as he finally walked through the opening and saw the decayed, decapitated head of a Trioxite sitting on an old tattered sweater on top of a makeshift shrine. "What the fuck?" Kevin shouted, holding the axe up defensively.
"You wandered into the wrong place, boy. You have no idea who you're messing with,"
the head threatened. Kevin smiled as a fun thought came to him, and with that smile on his face he replied, "Au contraire, my fair lady. I know exactly who I am messing with. Number 300! With those words, Kevin brought the axe down to the middle of the head, splitting it almost in half, and silencing Pamela Voorhees forever. "Yes! Yes! 300, baby! Wait till I tell the group!" Kevin put the axe back across his back and picked up the silenced head, laughing to himself, and walked out of the shack. "How long have you been here talking to yourself, you old bitch?" Kevin asked the decapitated head that would never answer again. As Kevin walked out of the shack, too excited that he finally got to kill his 300 Trioxite to realize that somebody had to have put those animals in there, he turned back in the direction he had come from and started walking, looking down at the head in his hands. You're no fun anymore. Horrible conversationalist. See you later, number 300. You've been fun." With that, Kevin absently tossed the head over his shoulder behind him and took a few more steps before a realization hit him. He never heard the head hit the ground. Kevin slowly turned around and almost pissed himself when his eyes fell upon the large, bald man standing not far from the shack and not far from Kevin. He wore a battered, weathered hockey mask over his face and was holding the head of the woman in both hands, looking down at it. Kevin began to slowly back away when the large man's head snapped up inhumanly fast, and Kevin felt the rage and hatred radiating from the eyes that glared at him from behind the hockey mask. The man in the hockey mask dropped the head to the ground and pulled a machete from his waistband. Kevin didn't even stop to think. He pulled the axe from across his back and held the handle in both hands and threw it with all of his might towards the giant before him. The axe spun in the air, but the man in the mask simply swiped it down with his machete. Kevin didn't wait to see what happened next. He spun around and ran for his life. He had no idea where he was going. He just knew he had to run. The man behind him was walking fast, taking huge strides, and no matter how fast Kevin ran, the large man in the hockey mask didn't lose any ground. The freak now had Kevin's axe in one hand and the machete in the other, and he was going to close the gap. Kevin was giving it his all. He ran like he did on the football field, but to no avail. This monster in the hockey mask was going to catch him. Was this Jason, the special boy the head spoke of? Did I just kill his mom? Oh, fuck! Oh, fuck! Where the fuck is the cabins? Kevin's thoughts screamed. Then Kevin came into a clearing. As he ran out of the trees, he began to lose his footing. He was sliding. He almost fell, but was barely able to remain standing. He took a quick look around and realized he was on the lake. It was frozen. He noticed something else. Jason was standing on what Kevin assumed was the bank of the lake, but had stopped following Kevin. Kevin stopped and faced Jason, who was about 20 feet away. "What's wrong, Jason?" Kevin yelled. Using the name got no reaction from the giant. Jason simply put the machete back in his waistband and still held the axe in the other hand. "Wait a second. Are you shitting me? Come on, Gretzky. Are you afraid of a little ice? A little water?" Kevin teased. Maybe he would be okay after all. Jason wasn't coming out onto the lake after him. If the ice held, then maybe he would actually get away. A light snow had begun to fall. The storm was almost upon them, and he needed to find his way back to the others. "Look, dude, I had no idea that head was your, what, mom, sister, woman? Wait, were you getting head from that head? Like, were you actually..." Kevin's words were cut off as Jason reached over with his free hand and took the handle of the axe in both hands, and with an underhanded throw, lunged the axe into the air above where Kevin was standing. Kevin watched as it spun in the air above him, but his football reflexes were sharp, and he simply stepped out of the way as the axe landed with a thwack, and the blade hit and stuck into the ice next to him. It had missed by a mere foot. "Ooh, nice try, but yeah, dude, you missed. Look, I'd love to stay and chat, but I got places to be, so just chill out," Kevin taunted. He opened his mouth to speak again, but stopped as he saw Jason reach down and retrieve the machete from his waistband and began to walk out onto the frozen lake. Kevin turned to run, but as soon as he took a step, the ice around his feet began to crack, coming from where the axe had hit the lake. In a panic, Kevin realized he was never the target of the axe. Jason wasn't afraid of the ice or the water. He had fallen for Jason's trap, and now it was too late. If he tried to run, he'd fall into the freezing lake. If he didn't run, Jason would do God knows what with that machete. Kevin began to slowly back away, being as careful as he could. Each tiny movement sent a new spiderweb of cracks out from below him. Even if he could move slow enough to not break the ice, it didn't matter. Jason was clearing the gap. His time was up. He had to think of something now or surely die. Kevin hoped his athleticism would save his hide. He turned and took off running, hoping he would get away from where the ice had been weakened. But even he wasn't fast enough. The spider webs of broken ice below his feet gave way when he began to run, and Kevin fell. His body plunged into icy cold darkness. The shock hit him like a freight train, and the air was knocked from his lungs. He was swallowing freezing lake water. If he didn't get to the surface, he was going to drown. He kicked his feet with all of his might, using every bit of athleticism he had in his body. His head burst from the water, and he was facing the bank of the lake. Jason was nowhere to be seen. He looked left and right along the bank. He looked behind him, and still nothing. He was alone, but he was freezing, and the snow was falling a little harder now. He had to get out of the ice-cold water, or he would freeze before he found shelter. He waded a few feet to solid ice and began trying to pull his freezing frame out of the icy depths. He heard a loud splash behind him as Jason rose from the water. He felt a large hand grabbing his hair and lifting him. Then he felt a fiery hot pain in the back of his neck. He began to scream, but the noise was cut off as the blade of Jason's machete slowly pushed through the back of Kevin's neck, through his Adam's apple, and out the front of his throat. The pain was immediate and intense. The icy shock disappeared, replaced by a panicked, burning urgency as his lungs tried to breathe as they were drowned by his pumping hot blood. Kevin thrashed in Jason's grasp like a fish flopping on land. After a few moments, the thrashing stopped. Jason pulled the machete out of Kevin's neck and let go of Kevin's hair, and let him fall back into the icy waters of Crystal Lake. Jason slowly pulled himself out of the icy waters, not feeling the cold, only a hot rage. He made his way back through the woods of Crystal Lake and back to his shack. He knelt to both knees next to his mother's head. He held it, but she didn't speak. He no longer even heard his mother's voice in his head. He stared for minutes into the split eyes of his dead mother. Then he sat her down and used his machete to begin digging a hole in front of his shack. He dug with his blade and then with his hands. After he was done digging, Jason stood and walked inside the shack. Seconds later, he returned holding the tattered, worn blue sweater his mother once wore. He knelt again and picked up his mother's head and slowly wrapped it in the sweater. He then gently placed the head wrapped in the sweater inside the hole he had dug. He began to fill the hole, and when he was done, he stood again, and once again entered the shack he had shared the past 15 months with his mother. This time he was inside a little longer, collecting knives, another machete, the razor glove, and more. Somehow he knew his mother's killer was not alone. Outliers had returned to his home. He then took the candle in the back room and laid it on its side next to some old clothing and paper, and slowly exited the shack as it began to go up swiftly in flames. Jason watched the shack burn bright as the snow fell harder and harder from the dark clouds above. The unadulterated evil that was Jason Voorhees was reborn by fire in his mother's second death. He had let himself become too complacent. He had let his guard down. He had forgotten that outliers would always invade their home, would always try to hurt him and Mother. He had allowed more of their kind to enter their home, and now Mother was gone, physically, and he couldn't hear her voice anymore. As the shack collapsed into a fallen heap of flames and debris, Jason turned towards the Crystal Lake Campgrounds. And even without his mother to speak the words to him, Jason knew what he must do. They had taken his mother away again, this time forever, and Jason would kill. He would kill them all. Okay, Slashaholics, this has been chapters 1 and 2 of my original Friday the 13th story, Friday the 13th Quarantine. A lot went down in tonight's chapters. I hope you enjoyed them. You got to meet our cast of characters. The Senator, oh my God, what is he up to, right? Like, I know, I just can't tell you yet, but yes, he's definitely up to something. He definitely knew about Crystal Lake. You're going to find out how and what his real plan was, telling them. It sounds to me, if I was a listener of this book or reader of it, this is kind of what I'm going for, it was just a bait and switch. He needed protection. He gave them like this false hope of another base, because he knew a safe place to go to, maybe from being a senator. So, but you'll get answers, I promise. You'll find out what OPCLJV stands for. I hope you enjoyed the little references tonight. Freddy's glove made another appearance. Maggot head, come on. We had to get Tommy Jarvis in there somewhere, or TJ as it were. I hope you enjoyed who our characters are going to be. The senator, the rich couple that are stuck up and lazy, the quiet twins, the dad and his two teenagers, and our fallen football star, Kevin. Kevin made a big mistake. He really wanted that 300th kill of a trioxite, and he just picked the wrong trioxite to kill for number 300. I hope you really enjoyed the way Jason took Kevin out. The stalking him, making Kevin think he was safe, using the axe. You know, he wasn't trying to hit Kevin with it. He was wanting to weaken the ice so Kevin couldn't run. And I love when Kevin when I was writing it, it's like, yes, yes, yes. And then Kevin realizes, you know, Jason wasn't trying to hit him with it, and he is fucked. And you have to remember that the apocalypse happened in like September of 2006. That's when it started. So when I decided that Kevin was going to be singing to himself, I had to find a hit song from the summer of 2006. That way, you know, it was still like a relevant song at the time that would have been stuck in his head even after the apocalypse. So you got to hear me singing Nasty Girl by the Notorious B.I.G. And also, you know, whenever he started thinking about the wall being like the one that held King Kong in, I kind of wrote him to do what we all do sometimes. We like go down a rabbit hole with our thoughts. So he's thinking about, it's nice to be inside walls as big as the ones that held King Kong. And then it was like, oh, and that movie with Jack Black was really good, the King Kong remake, which came out in '05, by the way. And Jack Black, damn it, I didn't get to see that Tenacious D movie. It was supposed to come out 2 months after the apocalypse started. Stuff like that. So I hope you like those references. And I got to tell you, there's a little thing I did with the cast of characters. Kevin's death, the way Kevin died, like what actually took his life away. If you think about his first name and the way he died, you might get that little hat tip that I have to Friday the 13th Part 1. But if you look at the cast of characters as a whole, their names and everything, see if you can figure out what the huge hat tip to Friday the 13th is. And I'll be looking forward to hearing from you all in the comment section. I hope you're enjoying the story so far. Jason has lost his mom again, has had her taken away, and this time there's no chance of a return. And this is a new Jason. This is a reborn Jason who is going to kill them all, and he's not going to take his time doing it. So yeah, you know, they got Jason coming after him. They don't know it yet. A bad snowstorm coming to the point they probably couldn't leave and escape Crystal Lake back out into the zombie world if they wanted to. So they're going to be caught between a rock and a hard place. And I promise you, this story's only going to get more intense and more bloody. So let me know what you think of the story so far. I really appreciate all the feedback I got on the prologue, and I hope I did not disappoint with the characters and the first kill. I'll see you soon. Thank you all so much. Be excellent to each other. Please consider joining my Patreon or donating through PayPal or Cash App, or even getting a cameo video. All these things support the channel. I cannot keep the channel going without help from all of you, because I cannot monetize the channel through YouTube. Always remember, the sun never sets on those who ride into it, and I'll see you soon.